right, so we talked about Jesus healing a blind man from birth, or there was blind from birth, and that had never happened before. And now we were talking about resurrection. Lazarus been dead for 4 days, which is interesting. Jesus made sure to wait the 4 days to make sure that, in the Jewish tradition, they believed that a person could wake up from death up until the third day. You know that? They believed that people could wake up from death. So in order to confirm that someone was dead, you had to wait until the fourth day. So Jesus like, hey, Jesus, your friend Lazarus is sick. He's dying. And Jesus like, nah, he ain't dying, man. He's good. Hey, Jesus, your friend Lazarus, he died. No, man. He's just sleeping. So the sickness does not lead to death. Now Jesus, serious. He died. He's like, all right, let's go. So they go. Bethany, I think, that's the place. Let me double check. And Mary, is that Bethany? Yes, Bethany. Cool. Near Jerusalem. So they go, and when Jesus gets there, he's met by Mary and Martha. It's a bunch of Jewish people in the house, mourning with them and doing the custom thing. They used to be customary to hire people to cry out, in the thing. And there's an interesting clue here that I like to read it this way. In the beginning, I said the gospel according to John, but we're gonna go with John, but it's not necessarily written that it was John. But verse 3, for example, it says, so the sister sent to him saying, Lord, he whom you love is ill. So the disciple whom you love, right? So that could be Lazarus who wrote it. Some people believe it. Anyway, another interesting thing is verse 9. Jesus answered, I'm not there 12 hours in the day. It's actually 24, Jesus, but I won't correct you, right? No, he's talking about day and night. Okay, it's very, very clear to them. It starts at 6 o'clock in the morning. That's the day. It goes all the way to 6 o'clock at night. And then night starts at 6 o'clock. And then it goes all the way to 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm just joking. Just joking, people. Don't throw the stones yet. And Jesus said, I'm not there 12 hours in the day. If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble, because he sees the light of the world. But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles, because the light is not in him. Now remember, I told you, in the Gospel of John, everything that is good happens during the day. Everything that is bad happens at night. And Jesus says, he's the light of the world, and the light of the world came to give life to the world. Now he's saying, if you walk during the day in light, you won't stumble. You won't fall. But if you walk at night, darkness, death, you will stumble. Why? Because the light is not in him. Jesus in you. So that's, chapter 11. You see how the chapters in John, they complete each other. They're all pieces of puzzles. And that's why I said, you have to read John at least. Look, let me say it this way. Please don't understand this as arrogance, okay? You are free to disagree with everything that I've said. But if you wanna present a different alternative, a different thesis, you have to read at least 100 times. If you read 100 times and you see other opinions and you read everything that's out there, and you say, okay, Pedro, I've read it 100 times. I've read like 20 different commentaries. I've watched 200 hours worth of content of this. Then you're free to come and say, okay, I have a different idea. Other than that, I don't see how someone could disagree with that. So, and again, please don't understand this as being arrogance. It's just because it's very clear. You just got to read it and read it again and again and again in order to get it. You won't get it the first time. It's okay. Most people won't get, no one will get it the first time. Just read it again, okay? So Lazarus died, and then when Jesus talks to them, they walk out. Mary comes forward. Or Mary says that Martha comes out super desperate. Oh, if you were here, my brother wouldn't have died. And Jesus like, yeah, he'll rise again. Don't worry about it. She's like, yeah, I know. You taught us that. We were there before, and I know he'll rise again on the last day. And Jesus like, no, I'm not talking about the last day. I am the resurrection and life. And remember the famous I am. I am the bread of life. I'm the light of the world. I'm the living water. I am the life and resurrection. I'm the way, the truth, and the life. I am that I am. And all of that. So he's like, He'll resurrect on the last day. And he's like, no. He'll resurrect now. If you believe, and Jesus says this is important. Verse 38. Jesus was deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave, and a stone lay against it. Jesus said, take away the stone. And Martha was like, oh, he's been there for 4 days, Lord. It's going to stink. And he's like, I told you, this illness is not for death. Take away the stone. And Jesus said, did I not tell you that if you believe, you would see the glory of God? So what's the glory of God? It's the miracle no one's ever seen before. 4 days, not 3, 4 days. We waited. I waited long enough. And when Jesus prays, he prays out loud so that people would hear it. Not for him, but he prays out loud so that people will go like, okay, Jesus has been telling us this whole time that he and the Father are one. So now we've seen something that we've never seen before. Not that they hadn't before, because they've seen the guy who was born blind being healed. When he said these things, he cried out loud with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out! And the man had died came out. The man who had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips, and his face wrapped with cloth. And Jesus said to them, unbind him and let him go. Very important, the detail here, because Lazarus comes out of the tomb as a dead man who received life, wrapped up. Jesus is not in the tomb, but he leaves the wrapping in there. Do you see the connection here? Lazarus, a natural man, resurrected but still bound by death. Jesus, man and God, leaves the wrapping in the tomb and walks away with a resurrected body, because he said, no one takes away from me. I lay down and I take it again. So that's a connection. Many of the Jews, therefore, who had come with Mary and had seen what he did, believed in him. And then verse 48. If we let him go like this, everyone will believe in him, and the Romans will come and take away both our place and our nation. This is the Pharisees having a discussion. All right. So, but one of them, Caiaphas, who was a high priest that year, said to them, you know nothing at all, nor do you understand that it is better for you that one man should die for the people, not that the whole nation should perish. He didn't say this of his own accord, but being a high priest that year, he prophesied that Jesus would die for the nation, and not for the nation only, but also to gather into one the children of God who are scattered abroad. So from that day on, they made plans to put him to death. Now, 2 things about this prophecy. Number 1, remember Romans chapter 4 or chapter 5, if I'm not mistaken. Paul says, death came to humankind by one man, but life came through another one man, Jesus Christ. So here Caiaphas is prophesying, saying, hey, it's better that one man should die instead of the whole nation. So he's prophesying. And then he says, and not just for one nation, but together into one, the children of God, which is beautiful. And Jesus therefore no longer walked openly among the Jews, but went from there to the region near the wilderness, to a town called Ephraim, and there he stayed with the disciples. So that'll be the end of chapter 11. That'll be the end of chapter 11. Lazarus, the resurrection. Beautiful thing. And we're almost closing. So we're going to read chapter 12 on the next video. And chapter 12 will be the sealing, the stopping point before we move into the next section of John, which is 13 to 17 or 13 to 16, depending on how you read it. But John could be separated that way. Chapter 1 is like a prologue and an introduction. Chapter 2 all the way to chapter 5 are like miracles and things that he did. Chapter 6, 7, and 8 is the culmination of chapter 3, 4, and 5. So 3, 4, and 5 is kind of like a bookend. 3, 4, and 5, 6, 7, and 8 close together, close the book, drop the mic, seal the deal, walk away. And then chapter 9 to 12 is just a continuation. In a way, it's kind of similar to Romans. Romans chapter 1, introduction. Chapter 2, a little bit of continuation. Chapter 3 to 6, all about sin, death, how it all originated. Chapter 6, 7, and 8 about salvation, justification, predestination, and all of that. And then could finish at chapter 8, but then chapter 9 to 12, just a continuation. 12 is a mirror of 8. And then Paul finishes with 13, politics, 14, the gifts, and all of that. 15, 16, the farewell. So John and Romans, very similar, although Romans very linear. John is very circular. But nevertheless, this is chapter 11. We're going to go on now to chapter 12.